In this episode, we're going to look at armored warfare and have a brief review of what will be coming our way in the Early Access Test 4, which will be running from August 13th through August 30th. One interesting thing to note about Early Access Test 4 is that for the first time, the servers will be available 24 hours a day for testing, which I think will be a welcome change for everyone. Before we dive into this too deeply, in the background, just to let you know, this is one of my very first matches that I ran in the Leopard 1, and at the end there will be some footage from the very first match I ran in the Fox, which is a fun vehicle, if a little difficult to control sometimes. Basically, this is just going to recap all the various details that we have had access to so far for the Early Access 4 test period. Many folks haven't seen all the bits and pieces. I thought I'd put them together in one place for you. The first thing coming our way has me more than a little bit excited. They are finally unveiling their new retrofit system. The retrofit system is a customization system that goes a little bit beyond their current standard upgrade system. Currently, the upgrades are the ones that eventually became available on the main production models of the various vehicles in-game. Basically, the items that you could get straight from the manufacturer, if you want to look at it that way. However, they wanted to allow more personalization than that. And it is true that often a arms manufacturer would offer a stock vehicle or a few varieties of a given vehicle, but when a nation or other entity would purchase these vehicles, they would tend to customize them to their own tastes and needs. The retrofit system is Armored Warfare's way of allowing players to do the same thing, to customize a vehicle as much as possible to suit their own playstyle. Each vehicle will have a number of retrofit slots available. Some will be stock and some will be unlockable as part of its upgrade path. Vehicles that were sparse on basic upgrades will generally have more retrofit slots for the sake of game balance. And there will be 5 types of retrofit slots available: firepower, armor, mobility, technology, and a 5th type, which is just simply known as universal, which, as the name implies, can simply be used for any of the other 4 types of retrofit upgrades. You purchase these retrofit upgrades for each vehicle individually, just like you purchase regular upgrade components. And while everyone will start out with a fairly standard set of retrofit upgrades available, you can unlock more and more advanced versions of those upgrades as time progresses. Now, it goes without saying that the retrofit system's initial rollout, as well as everything else that will be included in the Early Access Release 4, will be subject to change. They'll be paying close attention to player feedback, and any adjustments that need to be made will be. The next rather major addition coming our way in Early Access Test 4 will be the artillery support shells that are finally going to make it into game. Initially, 2 shell types will be introduced. There will be a smoke round that everyone has access to, and then artillery vehicles tier 6 and above will have access to illumination rounds. The smoke rounds will provide concealment from all targets within the area of effect, which is a radius of 30 meters and will last for a duration of 20 seconds. When using smoke rounds, artillery players will be rewarded for breaking enemy line of sight on their allies. Illumination rounds, on the other hand, reveal and spot all vehicles in the target area. They have an effect radius of 30 meters as well, and a duration of 10 seconds. And when you're using these rounds, artillery players will be rewarded for enemies that are spotted in that area, as well as any damage dealt to the targets that are spotted. And I think it's important to note what a good idea that is, that not only will the entire team benefit from the use of these rounds, but the artillery driver will as well, in terms of experience and money earned. It's also important to note that an additional benefit to using these specialty rounds is the fact that they don't cause pings on the map when an artillery driver fires them like normal artillery rounds do. In effect, you will be much less likely to be the recipient of counter-battery fire when you're using these specialty rounds. Now, all of this will be wrapped inside a much larger game mechanic that is being introduced. That mechanic being known as weapon groups. Many vehicles in armored warfare have multiple weapon systems to choose from. And weapon groups will be a mechanic that allows you to switch between those weapon systems much more quickly than you currently can. Normally, you have to wait for an entire reload cycle to occur. Well, with weapon groups, two different weapon systems can be reloading at different times, and to switch between those two weapon groups will have a much lower time penalty than a full reload cycle. For example, if you've just fired a guided missile, let's say, while it is reloading, you can spend a much briefer amount of time switching over to your main gun. Firing that, it begins its reload, and if you so desire, you could switch back to your guided missiles. Obviously, the timing involved in this new and slightly more complicated system is going to be critical, and there will likely be a lot of tweaks to those values. But it should allow vehicles that have multiple weapon systems a slight advantage in game and feel a bit more natural. Now, that system is not yet ready to go for all combat vehicles that have multiple weapon systems. It's first being rolled out for artillery. Artillery is a bit of a special case when it comes to this weapon system. It's true they don't have a secondary weapon system per se, but they do have these specialty rounds available to them. So those are going to be considered a separate weapon system for the purpose of this mechanic. You can load up your main damage-dealing rounds in one weapons group, and you can load up these new specialty shells in another weapons group and switch between them as needed. It will reduce the amount of time necessary to switch from one type of attack to another. I think they felt that it was particularly important that artillery have this ability too, as the much longer reload times inherent in most artillery would have made it a bit prohibitive to freely switch between the various types of shells at your disposal. It will allow artillery drivers to feel free to switch back and forth between damaging ammunition and support ammunition at will. Personally, I'm not entirely convinced that artillery need to be part of this new system. I don't know if they need that advantage, but if nothing else, they will provide an excellent test bed of the system before it's implemented for the rest of the vehicles in armored warfare. Obsidian is also taking this opportunity to introduce several new vehicles: the T-54, the M48 Patton, the Object 430, the Centauro 120, the FV-721, the Begliet Panzer 57, forgive me if I butchered that, and the T-72A. They'll also be removing the Centauro 155 so that it can be rebalanced. While they're at it, they're also going to overhaul the game economy again. Apparently they're not quite satisfied with how things are paying out. And, as I've covered in a previous video, there will be a significant increase in the PvE mission rewards, and some new PvE missions, which are most welcome. Another announcement that caught my attention about the Early Access 4 test was they've stated there will be a large optimization bundle. Hopefully this means that we can anticipate better frame rates, smoother gameplay, and the elimination of the occasional odd crash to desktop that currently happens. As always, there will be rebalances of other certain vehicles, and a large number of bug fixes and improvements will be part of the package. One thing that causes a great deal of worry and speculation among players whenever a new early access test is released is whether or not there is going to be a reset of the progress we currently have made in-game. And in this case, the answer is yes. They'll be introducing multiple dealer tree changes in the Early Access 4 patch, as well as some other significant rebalances of the vehicles in-game. So that players are not affected by these changes too severely, there will be a reset of our current account progression. Now, before you get too upset about that, the saving grace in all this is that all of the currency and experience that we have earned in the previous Early Access patches will be given back to us in the form of free reputation and unspent credits. How you spend the reputation and credits that you will have bankrolled is up to you. If you had specialized in one dealer's tech tree and wished you had tried at least a few of the vehicles in their rival, well, now you can. Or if you're like me and you tried a little bit of everything, well, now if you choose to do so, since you have a better idea of what you like and dislike as far as the vehicles offered, you can focus your training as you see fit. And one last very nice touch. The client will also be available in the German, French, and Polish languages, which I'm sure will make a lot of players very, very happy. Since many of you watching this video may very well not be part of the previous early access testing, I just want to go over very quickly how you can become a part of the early access test number 4. Obsidian will be continuing to draw randomly from among the existing base of players that have signed up as wishing to participate in the early access testing. Alternatively, you could also win a key in one of the giveaways that they have sponsored. And last but certainly not least, if you're not the type that likes to rely on random chance for such things, you can get guaranteed access to this and future tests, as well as early access to open beta and other advantages and rewards, including premium and exclusive vehicles, by purchasing one of the 3 available Founders Packs. I'll put a link in the description below. Well, that's everything I've been able to find so far on Early Access Test 4 for Armored Warfare. I have enjoyed the testing immensely thus far, and I think you probably would too. With any luck, in a couple of weeks, I'll see you in-game. Until then, in whatever game it is you're playing in the meantime, good hunting. Thanks for watching. I hope you were entertained. If you liked the video, please remember to subscribe. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you. And I'll see you next time.